We're live. Morning, everyone. This is episode 179 for the 10th of December, 2014. Our guest today is Kuze. We're about to start. Usual story. I don't see any particular reason to hang about. Now, there was a Sarlacc Digest, which I'd sort of planned to go through Ilmarinen's stats for ranked PvP, but I haven't really had a chance to go into it in detail, so I think we might push that off again and do it next week, where I'm guessing there will be very little news. So that will sort of be a bit of filler for that. So chill, once we get to that section just mentioned, next week. PvP, or ranked PvP Season 3 analysis next week. Alright, anything else, or shall we go? Just waiting. Alright, let's do this.
Okay. Get to the top of the notes again. Going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast, the podcast that, hey, point that thing someplace else. This is episode 179, being recorded on Wednesday, December 10th, 2014. I'm your host, Chill, along with our producer, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
And with us today are Kuze and Red. So, Kuze, what you been up to?
Well, after 12x XP, a lot of leveling, and I was hoping I wasn't going to burn myself out during that time for leveling after 3.0, and it didn't turn out that way because Rishi and the new planets and moons, whatever you want to call them, it's fresh, so it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I did want to say thanks for having me on the show again. It's good to be back. Sure. So leveling's been good. I just to interlude, I just got my 27-inch monitor, which I got up. I got to brag about that. Sweet. And I was healing you and a team through one of the flashpoints, group finders. And so that was a little bit challenging because I didn't have everything set up on the monitor correctly. I had abilities in different places, and I didn't have my UI. Everything, since the screen is a lot larger, I had the UI. Was all messed up, so it was difficult on top of the already undergeared challenge of doing flashpoints.
Which one did you do, Kuze?
We wound up doing a blood hunt.
Tactical style.
But yeah, it was pretty quick. It wasn't too bad.
Wiped a few times.
Yeah, because there's some odd bugs in there. If somebody comes back, that it'll reset one of the fights, the second fight.
Yeah.
Oh.
But anyways, so my main focus was, and Tio charged us with a challenge, or wanted us to be ready for raid this week, but I knew that I had plenty of time to get leveled up to 60, so I took my time. I did a lot of exploring, enjoyed the story, crafted like a madman to try to take advantage of the market and make as much credits as I possibly can. So I did that, and finally 60, I can make all the augments that I need. I'm all augmented out, geared out, ready to go for Thursday tomorrow, so it should be a good run. We'll see what happens. And as far as my leveling experience, I do differ from a lot of people. I think since I took so much time to level, I was able to do the dailies probably 2 rounds of dailies, and I finished everything before the patch, including the Revan fight and all that. So
nice.
It was good.
All right, excellent. And Red, how about your week?
Well, of course, I was playing 3.0. It was freaking fantastic. I did finish getting my commando up to 60, and then I switched over to my mercenary, at which point I heard about the removal of the ability costs. So I decided to do a little experiment, and that character had been a fresh 55. It was the very last character I made 55, so it was wearing, greens that were level 20 and level 30 and whatnot, but had certainly not done the Forged Alliance storyline either. So I went ahead and decided to see if I could make it to 60 without upgrading a single one of those abilities. Did the whole Forged Alliance's storyline, popped some experience boosts, hit 57 before even landing on Rishi, and I was able to do it. It was actually remarkably easy. I was done. I didn't do any extra dailies or anything. I was done. I hit 60 before I finished Yavin by any stretch of the imagination, and didn't
Right,
need
and
upgraded abilities. I was only taking the gear that I was getting as quest rewards. So
yeah, exactly. The quest reward gear is really good in the tactical flashpoint solo mode.
yeah, in fact, that was my next experiment, which I've begun. I've already done the Forged Alliances storyline with my Vanguard, but rather than taking the time to send through Legacy gear that I could wear on my Vanguard, I just went in naked to Manon and let the robot drag me through. By the end of Nakata Prime, I had gloves, wrist,
Hmm.
belt, and a crappy weapon just so I could use my abilities.
Right.
I'm far enough along on Rishi now that she's no longer naked at all. I think she
She's
might
got.
be missing one piece or something, but I think she might
Mhm.
actually be fully geared. Maybe she doesn't. I don't think she's got a hat yet. But other than
Okay.
that, she's got her gear, and yeah, didn't need gear as long as you can do that Forged Alliances storyline, because that robot does all the work.
Awesome.
Then, otherwise, I've been doing some PvP. I've been really
Hmm.
diving in headlong to the whole healer experiment.
Very nice.
And for me, and this is just totally personally me, I learn best through trial by fire in PvP. To really learn every ability, where I've got those hotkeys, get comfortable with those abilities, scramble, feel like I'm terrible, which I really am.
Right.
But learning it, loving it, really enjoying the healing. I had played probably 2 years ago on my Mando pre 2.0 a little bit with heals. It feels like a completely different class now. And it's so mobile. It's very, very pleasurable, especially with the different utility points. So I'm looking forward to
Awesome.
actually being able to get into my first operations group tonight after the show. Actually, I got into a new guild, and they're eager to bring me in as heals. So we'll see how that goes. I did do some hard mode flashpoints. I thought that I was having a lot of trouble healing, but the people that were with me said I was doing all right, and that maybe the tank was having trouble. I still think I wasn't doing as well as I could have.
I was just from experience. I was scrambling way more than I used to going through the flashpoints, but that was due to some of the setup issues that I had with the new monitor and things. But yeah, it's back to zero slate.
Yeah, it's interesting to be sure, but yeah, the only little tip that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is that of course I've been diving into the crafting and everything, and for some reason crafting seemed like it leveled a heck of a lot easier this time than it did with 2.0. But
Right. It was pretty easy.
the decorations vendor that you can get for free in your stronghold, the humanoid one, not the robot.
Oh.
You can buy decorations for credits off of it, and it's the same as those decorations that you got as quest rewards the first time you went into your stronghold. That vendor actually has a whole bunch of new decorations that are themed off of Rishi and Yavin 4. And so I just wanted to make sure that people know. And it's credits. You don't have to craft to get them or whatever. It's actually, and they're pretty cheap. So if you wanted a few more interesting decorations, definitely check that vendor out.
Awesome. All right. Tio, how about your week?
Well, I was playing probably too much, just doing a lot of leveling. Let's see, on the weekend with Ari, we actually pair leveled. I was on my Sentinel, and she was on her Sage, we got to level 60, just working in tandem. Now, interestingly enough, we noticed that all of the main story stuff is basically class story, in that when you go into a phased area at the various points, you have to split up, otherwise one of you is in spectator mode. You have to create separate instances to actually do it, which is an interesting choice. I mean, why not actually let people share that rather than forcing it to be solo, but whatever. In addition, I leveled my Sork, who's going to be my healer on the Empire side. Just ran Nimbus Madness for the leveling. Now, like Red, I didn't actually pay for any abilities because I knew they would be free. And so that got challenging. I did the same on my Sage, which I also leveled to 60. That was just a couple of days ago. Got him done as well. So it's 460 so far. I wanted a DPS tank and healer all on the pub side. And I've got my healer on the imp side. Now, speaking of that, yesterday I did my first hard mode flashpoint. This was with Ari tanking and me healing on my Sork. Yeah, it was challenging. We did hard mode Manan.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, which I
Hard mode.
had never clearly seen on hard mode before, and neither had at least one of the other pugs with us who were DPSing. it was, from a healing point of view, Sork healing is, or Sage healing, the introduction of the roaming mend is very, very cool.
Right.
That's the one that, the way it works normally is when you cast it on someone and they take damage, they will be healed and it will jump to someone else. And if that person takes damage, they'll heal them. It's for mending from WoW.
Yeah.
However, if you cast it after you get your buff from casting your hot, it will instantly heal. It doesn't have to wait for the target to take damage. So as long as you do that, it basically bounces around and it's like a smart AoE heal.
So every tick is instant, not just the first one.
Correct. It will just
every
bounce.
tick.
And
Wow. So
yeah,
you go
boing, 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 boing.
paintballs.
Yep. That's
cool.
That was great, and it heals for a lot. Other than that, being able to cast Innovate on the fly is great. They've changed the puddle heal, the whatever you call it, revivification on the Empire side. So you don't have to stand in it to get healed. You just run through it, and you get a hot. So that's a big change. So you just drop it, people run through it. Yeah. So I was also, because I'm only in the 186 gear, struggling to get. Well, I guess we only wiped not many times, and we did get it finished. It was tight though, really tight. I really had to work, and it was fun. I'll admit, I haven't had that much fun in a hard mode in a long time, so I really enjoyed it. So let me just quickly run through Manan hard mode, just some tips if you've never done it before, so that when you do get in there. Firstly, the first boss is the guy with the 2 droids, where the boss will have a shield for most of the fight, and the shield will swap. The droids will put it on him or on themselves. The idea is to DPS the droids down to about 30%, 50%, whatever, and then the shields are permanently on them, and you can DPS the boss. So that's the trick. It took forever. I don't know what our DPS were doing, but they were not switching targets. Anyway, so wasn't too bad, but it just went on forever. If you do it right, presumably it's okay. The second one, probably the toughest fight, is the guy who does the puddles of body fluid, apparently, and you have to kite him around. And then occasionally he casts the flow, which doubles the size of all the puddles. He actually throws them at people now. I don't remember him doing that. Like, throws a puddle to all the members in the group. Yeah. And then they will double in size, and if you get caught in that, you're basically dead. So the strat for that is the group should stay with the tank. The tank will sort of kite the boss around in a small area, and then when he does that flow thing, you will run to the other side of the room.
Right.
So you don't die.
Puddles are together. Gotcha.
Yeah. And as a healer, pre-healing, making sure everyone is full, because if they're not, they will probably die in the AoE damage.
Wow.
And the final fight, that's the boss where he's got the big shield. You have to kite him under the flames to actually give him a debuff so you can damage him. The 5-minute enrage timer. Roughly the same mechanics, except it's really, really tight, at least with the DPS you can do with 186 gear. And you've got to get him under the flame every time. Unlike story mode, we just do it once, shield's gone. You've got to keep the buff on him, the debuff on him. So
every time you see a new flame, you bring him over?
Yeah, we did it.
Flame. Do the flames stay
have to get him under. No, they come and go. They come and go.
Because in story mode, it pretty much is there a long time.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. So it makes it nice and easy. But this was tough. We wiped the first time with just a sliver of health, and then we did it again, and we got him. But geez, it was close.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fun. Only other thing to mention is 192 gear only drops from the final boss in the hard modes, it looks like.
Wow.
The first 2 bosses drop blue 178s, which was a bit disappointing, gotta say.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
Yeah. All right. Other things just to quickly mention, I've been doing a lot of crafting as well. I've got everything up to 500 across the board. I've got purple versions of stims, medpacks, adrenals, all the augments, and hilts and barrels. I don't know. I just want to be completely self-sufficient, so all that's done now.
And hell yeah, with the 8-hour-long stims now. OMG.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Let's talk about that. Stims, adrenals, and meg packs in Game Update 3.0. Let's talk about stims, as Red just mentioned. The differences are, firstly, you get, whenever you create stims with the matter you're given, that it consumes, you get a stack of 4, sort of like it was in the previous update. The greens, the greens will give you 1 stat for 178, and then the secondary stat are 74, and that lasts for 60 minutes. These are the same ones you can buy from a vendor for 4,500 credits. So just be aware of that.
Okay.
It may be cheaper, but probably not. Yeah, if you can craft them, you may as well craft them because they use very few mats. And those mats on Yavin 4, everywhere. Everywhere.
Oh,
True.
It's insane just how easy it is to gather mats at the moment, and probably, unless they change that going forward. Now, the blue versions last for 2 hours of stims, and they are about 5% more stat over the green ones. And then the purples are about 10% over the green.
As well.
Yeah, and the blue version persists through death. The purple version is about 10% stat over the greens, 5% over the blues. But as Red mentioned, they last for 8 hours and persist through death. So,
Yep.
God, why not?
Really strong. Really strong.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, and I made like 16 of them. I gave 18 over to Ordo, and frickin'... I'm like, I still have 48 hours
Yeah.
of stims. I mean, 48 hours, holy hell.
I wouldn't have to bum somebody off a chill this time over here when we're doing a raid. It'll last
still
both nights.
Yeah, I'm still working on all those recipes, so I don't have them all yet. I just have the strength actually for purple right now, but I'm getting there. So.
Well, hurry up. People are depending on you.
All right. Now, adrenals, the blue versions you make, there is no green version. The adrenals, the blue, 533 of whatever stat, that like power or whatever that the adrenal gives you. The purple version is about 41% more, giving you 750. So could be worth it.
Everyone's going to use the purples, I think, at least if it's serious.
And when you make the adrenals, again, the base mats will give you stacks of 6 each time.
Mm-hmm.
If it crits, you get maybe an extra 1. So, oh well. And finally, med packs. Now, the green med packs, same as you can get from the vendor for 2,500 credits. They all give you a hot over 15 seconds in addition to the base heal. So the greens are 68.50 to 71.75 base heal, and then 26.25 over 15 seconds. Now, the blues are about 5% better, and the purples are about 10% over the green, 5% over the blue. I'm really wondering whether it's worth going for the greens, whether it's worth going for the blues or even the purples for the med packs. They're made in stacks of 6, so it's a bit more, but is it worth it?
I don't know. Maybe for tanks, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Oh, also in crafting, something that Turg mentioned and I noticed as well. This is across the board. All green, everything. Your pans, your earpiece, implants, it doesn't matter what. They take 2 of each of the mats.
Right. It's like 2, and then 2 of the whites. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So unlike previously where it was like more for a bigger item, it's all just 2, 2, 2. So that made it really easy, and so you can reverse engineer anything wearable to make your augment kits. Get their MK10 augment components for your MK10 kits.
Sounds like if you've got multiple crafters, then it's still probably best to go with at least someone with scavenging, since those materials will be so much more relevant or prevalent and probably cheapest.
Actually,
save your biochem crafting for, actually making stuff you're going to use.
Yeah, makes sense.
In the means of, to reverse engineer to make like augmentation kits and stuff like that.
Or bio, actually. The biochemist and bioanalysis, those mats were even more prevalent, I noticed. The archaeology ones...
Just right there, where you land in Yavin, that whole freaking area. 20 minutes up and down and your bags are full.
Yeah, exactly. It is literally crazy. I should also mention the gathering missions for the ones you get through slicing and other places, that the wealthy seem to be pretty crap when it comes to the gathering professions, in that the return, given the cost, is just not worth it. You may as well just spend some time gathering, because if you don't gather, then missions are all you can do.
Right.
But I don't know. I wouldn't waste my time or the cost.
Except for the white common items that you can buy off the vendors. It's a lot cheaper to run those missions for scavenging.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing as in the past. Instead of buying off the vendor, you just run those common missions to get those flux and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I've yet to buy anything from the vendor, and you're right. Those I have running constantly. I'm running short on the archaeology ones, actually. Just one quick note about gathering archaeology. You may notice there are a whole lot of the color crystal ones, because each of the nodes will either give you color crystals or artifact fragments or the power crystals.
Right.
The way it works is an archaeology node will randomly be one of those. So if you don't gather it, and people just pick out the artifacts and the power crystals, you're eventually going to end up with color crystal nodes everywhere.
Everywhere.
So just be aware that if you really want to do this right, you should be gathering all of them. Vendor the color crystals if you want, because you end up with a lot of them, and but that will force everything to. You got the random chance of the spawn, so that's why you're seeing a lot of color crystal nodes.
They added a lot of dye packs, so maybe you can make dye packs.
Indeed.
Those dye packs are actually really nice too,
Some of them are
compared
nice,
to their past ones, especially with the pale colors. Because those vibrant ones that they had in the past were just horrible. The pale colors are nice.
Yeah.
Are there new top-tier crafting schematics for the conquests to use those color crystals?
Not that I have seen. The conquest crafting seems to be unchanged.
At this
Nothing new.
point. I wouldn't be surprised if they add something later.
Eventually, yeah. Only other thing I'll mention, and I apologize for going long here, is I mentioned last week the buff bar. I couldn't actually see that for my target frame. The reason for that is in the interface editor, I had ticked the button to put the buff below the target frame, so it was basically under my action bars. So, in case that happens to you, yeah, I was just madly clicking. I think I was in a hurry and clicked all of the options, the new options that you get with the buff bar stuff, and yeah, that's what happened. Anyway, that's my week. Over to you, Joel.
All right. Lots of crew skills for me, too. Lots of money from it. I was actually ill. On Thursday, I had an inner ear virus, and I was actually dizzy all day. So that's no fun at all. So you basically have to spend your whole day lying flat on the bed, trying not to make the room spin, and then trying to sleep as much as you can. So, yeah, Thursday was out. Friday, I started feeling a little better. I was basically kind of semi-sick through the weekend, but well enough to at least sit in front of a computer, so that was good. Did lots of crew skills because of it, because I didn't really feel like doing anything too energetic, so crew skills actually worked for me. So got a lot of purple stuffs, got a lot of credits. One thing one notice I'll make for crafting is in Cybertech, the PvP stun bombs. The purple ones are no longer never get used up. It's now the kind where you have to make like 4 or 6 of them or whatever, and then you will use them up.
So they did the same treatment as they did with Biochem, basically.
Yeah,
Nothing is reusable anymore?
No, but the one from the last patch, they have not changed. It's still eternal. However, it does about like half the damage. But for me, it's about the knock-up and not about the damage. So I'm going to use one from the last expansion on that character, and then my PvP character on the other side, who doesn't have Cybertech, I will make some greens and send them over. Whatever it turns out to be cheap and effective, I'll determine that later. Right, so so because I was sick, also I didn't get my level 60 until like real late on Friday. And that was my Sentinel, who's going to be my operations main, and probably my PvP main as well. And I did stream some PvP the other day as well. Quickly got 186 gear all around, except for relics. Bought a couple of relics off the GTN. Now I can actually make them, but I went ahead and bought them originally. And I'm now going to start working on the 192 gear so we can get hard mode going, but that's going to take a long while. I did do one Warzone that had a really fun turn in it, and I put that on YouTube as well from my stream, so I've put a link on that in the show notes. And I'm leveling my Marauder Mirror class for PvP on the Empire side. So also notice when you log out now, not exit the game, that's the same, but when you log out to the character selection screen, there's now a little fade and zoom effect where the screen kind of zooms in at you and fades at the same time, and then it's replaced with the character selection screen. So
I did wonder whether that had been there all along and I never noticed. So it is new.
I don't remember ever before. It's got to be new. It's got to be new.
It's good.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's it's a little cinematic. It's nice. Not that it's a cinematic, but that it is cinematic.
They'll fix it because we like it, kind of like the login screens that we had before
Oh,
they fixed it, where we
the
could see the full
faraway ones.
character.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the Kranitoko Cartel Pack opening video that had the cameos from the three of us. That was fun. So yeah, and mine of course sounds a little silly. That's on purpose. I actually did 3 different variants so that he could choose whichever one he wanted. So I'm happy with that. And then Mosk and I found something out. We are assuming it's a bug at this point. You should avoid the Yavin Force Healers MK1 Motivator implant. It's a purple 186, but the stats are incredibly low, and they're lower than other very closely similar variants. So I would avoid that one for the time being until they fix it. There are ones that are basically also good for healers that basically have crit and surge instead of whatever the Force Healer one is. It's power and something.
Yeah.
Power and something else. But yeah, that actually have the correct amount of willpower and so on.
Yeah, I saw this in the show notes. I went and checked, and I have actually bought one of these on my Sork. So thank you for drawing that to our attention. I'm going to have to trade that in for something else.
Yeah, definitely.
Terrible.
It's
Yeah,
I actually
clearly-
got really lucky on my biochem, and I've got I procced 2 that were better than what's available off of the basic com vendor, which
Nice.
is interesting. It's like an additional, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like 35 extra power, the same amount of willpower, and or
Yeah.
aim or whatever.
Yeah, and the implants, crafted implants are selling pretty well right now. I think it's because there's so many things to make in biochem that implants are not just being focused on super hard. That's my guess.
Well, and can I just say, I'm very happy. We all obviously spent a lot of time with crafting this week. I really
Yeah.
like where they're starting crafting out with this expansion. Like, it feels so much more relevant and poignant. Like, I'm eager to be crafting at this stage.
Right, for
But
now.
will it be like 2.0 that it's relevant now, but then going
Well-
forward until 4.0?
Right,
As soon as they
never
upgrade those
add-
basic com vendors, yeah, it becomes completely irrelevant.
Yeah, and we'll see. Hopefully around the time that the gear starts outstripping it and no one's buying the crafted gear anymore, hopefully that's maybe when they'll start updating the conquest stuff. We'll see. But yeah, it was a lot of fun this week. So that will actually bring us to the tip of the week, and we have a couple of them. Well, the first one unfortunately got accidentally wiped out. The Chimba of the Harbinger said to save up plenty of credits because level 60 training is quite expensive. Unfortunately, that tip, of course, came right, like literally hours before we learned that they were actually taking it away, and of course, it is now taken away in game. That's live now. You can actually train all your skills for 0 credits. But because he sent this, Lichimba sent this in good faith, we'll keep this one in the allotment. So, and Kuze, you have a couple tips that you wanted to add at this point, just sort of for fun.
Well, also for credits too, because I heard a lot of people complaining on Twitter and the forums and everything else that my ability costs are so high, and it might just be due to me having scavenging. I think I was roughly about 500k above, starting out at 55, and by the time I was 57 and a half or so, I was 500k above where I was at, and that was training, crafting, training the abilities up to that point.
Right.
I mean, it had to have been due to crafting and things, and I also kind of go out of my way to kill stuff and take in the scenery.
Especially a droid, right?
Yeah, especially droids. And also, the other thing was the bug that they had for the treasure chest that they had on Rishi. So what I did was, and this is one of the tips, is, and even now, after they've reduced the credits in the box, it's still pretty decent. It's probably, on average, 17k per box, maybe a little bit less. So yeah, it's a lot. So the
How much
characters
was
that you're
it
not,
before they fixed it?
the highest I hit was about 30k.
I heard
And
from
on-
a couple
on average,
individuals that they actually got spikes of 300k randomly popping in.
Oh yeah, I'd like to
That's
have
nice.
that on. But
I assumed that they were gonna nerf it a lot harder than that, because that's still about half of what it was doing. That's pretty nice,
I was
actually.
too. Yeah, so it's not bad. It's still a good option. So what I do is, my alts that I'm not leveling, that are 55 due to 12x XP, I can run around the world and not have too many issues. So I'll drop my alt on a spot where those chests spawn at. So when I log in to refresh my missions and stuff like that, if there's a chest there, that's just a bonus. So I'll pick it up and grab it. Sometimes I'll change an instance or two to see if I can grab another one. But that's a tip. So log in or drop your character where there's a treasure chest. It's just to get a bonus because that's paying for all my missions that I run. So really, I'm not out anything. Then I have some other characters that are sitting on resources. I have one of my slicers that's in Rishi. Right when you come off the port, where that first quest giver is at, there's three there's three slicing nodes. There's one that's by the Blood Hunt instance, and there's also two over by the crafters. So what I'll do is when I log in, I'm right there by that slicing node. I'll slice it. Sometimes I'll get a blue chest, and that's about 10K. Yeah. And then I'll run over to the other ones, and I might get a green. And sometimes it's dropping 2 whites, which is probably around 5 to 6K. So that, again, is paying for my missions that I have to turn around and run on that slicer. And sometimes I'll have to change instances as well. Or if you don't have the missions that you want, you'll spawn to your stronghold, activate those missions if they're available, and then if not, you go back to Rishi. And then when you go back to Rishi, it might put you in another instance, and you can redo those same things again instead of switching switching shards. So it's real nice to put your character where it's efficient for you to log in at. The other tip was which we said earlier, was to run the common missions or the common item missions on your characters instead of buying them off the vendor. And the third tip that I had was actually the fourth was I wouldn't waste your implants, your MK9, MK10 kits, 11, whatever they are now, on your earpiece, implants, and relics. Unless it's really cheap on the GTN or you craft them like crazy. I have 9 extra right now. I wouldn't waste them on putting them on there. So hold those off until you get to 192s, and then add an augment slot to those items and put your augment in there.
Cool. That's probably what I'll do anyway, maybe even beyond those pieces.
But that's it.
Yeah. In fact, I'm probably going to take the leveling gear from Rishi on my character and make that my look, because I really liked the whole space pirate look on the Sentinel. That was pretty sweet.
Oh God! All right.
All right, and one more tip from Lee, aka Secordia or Keranom. Crew skill tips. 1, I was surprised to learn you can hotkey an individual crew skill. N is the default for crew skill windows, but then you can drag an individual skill like diplomacy onto your hotbar. So if you have 132 crew skills running at once, which would be 6 times 22, then the clicks matter. It's 2014, and I still didn't know this.
We had mentioned that before as a tip, I believe. But yeah, it's a good reminder.
It's been a while. Let's see. Also, the second one, there's a link to swotor.onsberg.net about the new prefix changes. It seems like an improvement. The only gripe is that they reuse some of the prefixes. So veracity used to be one of the purple prefixes. You got from reengineering a blue readout. Now it's a blue that you get from reengineering a green. And they didn't change the old prefixes, and it's not eye level based. You can't, for example, use all above X, use the new scheme, since some upper Return of the Hutt Cartel items are better than low end Shadow of Revan. It's based on the crafting skill required to make the item, which is not immediately obvious upon inspecting the item. And veracity remains the blue that I get first whenever I am re-engineering cunning items.
Now that link that he provides, I saw that on Reddit earlier as well. It's a good summary of how they've changed it, and it is a significant change. This is where you're reverse engineering greens into blues, and then blues into purples, and how it is actually completely different. And from what I've seen so far, it looks better in that you're more likely to get the kind of stats that you want from the actual item. But it is a complete change, and the old system is still there for pre-SOR items. So it's worth. I'll link to it so that you can actually understand exactly how it's different.
Okay, cool. And one more that Lisa sent in. All the efforts in the GSA.
Galactic Strongholds.
Galactic Strongholds? Okay. All the efforts in Galactic Strongholds to use all the mats seems to have been forgotten with Shadow of Revan. I'm already buying Vita cloth for below vendor cost on the GTN. You need to be above 175.53 to get back more than your 165. So don't be that guy.
Yeah, I suspect Conquest isn't going to be anyone's focus for a little bit, at least until they make it relevant in Shadow of Revan.
Okay. And by allotment, the winner is Lachimba of the Harbinger. So, in good faith, Lachimba is the winner. So, of an M8R3 code, courtesy of BioWare, and an OotiniCast provided Cartel Market pack from the latest shipment. If you'd like a chance to win the same, please send your tips to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Wednesday. And that will bring us to the Holo feed. Tio?
All right, let's start with on Tuesday. They actually launched Shadow of Revan for real, so our 7 days of early access has finished, and it's now properly live for everyone who ponies up the $20 for it.
Have you had a chance to see if it's way more busy now?
Not really. I have logged in and it didn't seem any different, but...
Okay. Maybe that's just because you have to pay for it, so the subscribers all paid for it, and the free-to-players not so much. And
I guess I will eventually, but yeah.
Right.
Okay. Everyone pre-ordered, and so everyone was in early access. Who knows?
Okay.
So there has been a launch trailer. Now, this trailer is actually pretty decent. It includes a few quotes from the press. It's more cinematic. There's plenty of voiceover. Yeah, it's actually really good. So this one gets close to giving you tingles as opposed to the pre-release ones, which were
basic,
a little ordinary, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, were you going to say something, Kuso?
No, it just really bothers me that Star Wars doesn't go out of their way, or SWTOR doesn't go out of their way to put forth a commercial on TV, kind of like some of the other MMOs. And also, there are some, I guess, B app games out there that actually have commercials on TV. And if I could sit there and watch Clash of Clans on a TV, why not be inspired and have other people be inspired by looking at some SWTOR, Revan cutscene video or something briefly on TV, even if it's 30-second clip or something like that. I just really wish they would advertise a lot more to bring more people into the game. It just bothered me a little bit. That's all.
I've actually never seen an advertisement for this game. Ever?
Exactly. Yeah.
I only see them on websites. Basically.
I've seen them on websites. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Now I do know that on the SWTOR Twitch channel, I definitely saw a wonderful advertisement for the new World of Warcraft expansion.
Great.
Before I got to watch their live stream because they can't pay $10 to remove commercials.
But on the internet, we're getting targeted. They know we want to play Star Wars, so that's what they put on our advertisements. So it'd be nice for them to pitch to somebody else that might not be thinking about it. And say,
no, I've actually seen video ads before, like YouTube videos, and also before Twitch streams. So they are out there. Yes.
Okay.
Star Wars?
Not just banners, but actual videos that appear before you play something. On Twitch, for instance.
So they do exist anyway.
They do exist, yes. But TV, I've not seen at all.
Now, as Raider said in the chat, I'd be surprised if they don't have a huge marketing campaign once Episode 7 grows nearer. That's my thought as well. It probably wouldn't hurt for the game to be stabilized in a number of ways and for the feature set to be fleshed out a little more before they really make a marketing push to bring in people interested in Star Wars. So let's just see if they do actually change and EA marketing actually steps up and really does some saturation stuff.
I will be bold enough to say that I will be surprised if they actually do it.
All right, fair enough.
Nepthin and Gatic Tiger mentioning the live action trailer, which I've seen videos of on YouTube, but I've never seen. Maybe
on
it was,
TV.
Maybe it actually was on TV, but I've never seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Okay, let's talk patches. 3.0.0a was deployed on Tuesday morning during the normal maintenance window, which is apparently slightly extended, but not by much. And the first thing was ability costs have been removed from the game. There was a post about this a few days prior, so that's why a number of us held off actually purchasing our skills, because once you get to level 60, it will cost you, or it did cost you, upwards of 400 to 500,000 credits. It was reasonably steep. So the way I'm thinking of it now is, rather than spending that credits on training, that will pay for my augment upgrades to MK10s.
Which are
kits and stuff.
42,000 per kit installation.
Yes.
Which is
Down, way down.
between two characters is over 1 million credits.
It's horrendous, and I'm able to make my own kits and augments, but imagine if you had to spend for that as well as installations. Yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, but anyway, ability costs have been removed from the game. This seems to be a response to people just generally complaining, and particularly when a whole lot of people had to relearn skills with the introduction of the discipline system, and so this was their solution. Let's make it all free. I can't complain, obviously, because free stuff is good. Now, Bill on Twitter had a bit of a issue with this. He reckons it's kind of bad for the economy. My response to that would be that it's a fixed cost, one-off per character. I can't see it will be having any lasting or major impact. So you spend the credits once. If you don't, you're spending them on other stuff. And there's a whole lot of consumables now, especially in Biochem with the stems, adrenals, etc., as well as the MK10 kits and augments and everything else that are ongoing costs. But a one-off fixed cost for ability training.
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as Bill. I was in the other mindset as well, because I was making so much credits when I was loving. I couldn't believe that people were complaining about having to pay for these credits. Now, don't get me wrong. Once I heard that it was coming out, that it was going to be free, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm going to wait, and I'll wait and take those free abilities. But
Exactly.
in turn, so if I have to spend 500K on an ability, which is extreme in itself, it should have been less than that. And also, they probably shouldn't have charged us for abilities that we already had learned in the past. So previous to 55, all of that should have been free up into 56, and then they should have started charging us at a reasonable rate.
Sure.
But I probably wouldn't have made as much credits on the GTN as I have for barrels and hilts and things like that, because people had to save them up for the ability costs. So and it's a one-off. Again, like you said, if it's a one-off, it's not that big of a deal. But again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's what happens. So I think the minority spoke out, and that's what we got.
Now, on OotiniCast, I also brought up the point that the actual cost of all that training was somewhat above the credit cap for free-to-play.
Well, that's a good point as well. Again,
that would have been
it's probably too high.
Exactly.
I think that it was probably too high. I'd prefer that they had just cut it in half, rather than straight up fining everybody that pre-ordered the game. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I think you said it best, that it's a one-off cost that is no longer a one-off cost. It's not really a genuine credit sink.
It just affects the market up front, and after that, it's not even an issue.
Yeah. All right. Also, that only affects ability skill costs, not crew skills. So purchasing all your crew skill schematics, etc., will still cost you what they cost you. So that is unchanged. It's just abilities. So it's just
Cry
like
about it enough, though. They'll probably take it out.
I'm starting a thread.
All right. They fixed a display bug that caused prefab decorations to not appear in the decorations UI. This was one of the rather large bugs with Galactic Strongholds that was introduced with 3.0. We've got more on that later. So there are still some extents, so that at least was fixed. The chests, we talked about that on Rishi and Yavin 4. They've reduced the number of credits that they grant. And, in terms of mission fixes, firstly, you can defeat the final encounter in the expansion. So the big bad, or good, depending on your point of view, could be both, is actually now able to be completed, the final encounter on Yavin 4. The meat on a stick mission, which is when you get early on in Rishi, has been fixed, so the stick no longer becomes inoperable, so you can stick your meat on it.
Good.
Yep. And apparently the operations, the Ravagers and the Temple of Sacrifice, are two new ones. The last encounter wasn't actually granting any loot, so it's a bit unfortunate, and it has been fixed now. And if this impacted you prior to in the early release access, in the early access week, then contact customer support and they will get you the loot. But now it should all be fine.
Okay.
Okay, Red, you got something to say?
Yeah, my only thought is when you sit down and look at what they launched with the pre-order early access, really what we got was open beta access with an incomplete game. You couldn't finish the story solo mode, and you weren't getting rewards off of the operations final bosses fights, which were incomplete. I mean, it was incomplete. And then there were bugs for side missions. At the end of the day, I genuinely think the next time they do an expansion, I'm not going to pre-order. I'm actually going to wait, because by the time I get access, I'll be able to get a complete game that's ready for me. And it takes you about 6 hours to level from 55 to 60. I'm not even going to be behind.
Interesting. Okay.
Just because, from a business perspective, they don't need my money going into it if they're not even going to give me the product that I paid for.
They're going to get your money either way. So if you're going to wait until
Eventually,
after if you're going to wait until after they fix it,
go ahead.
I mean, you're going to pay it anyways. It's coming out of your pocket. You might as well go ahead and add that to your checkbook and say, hey, I'm going to pay you this. So either you pay in the beginning or you pay towards the end. Either way, you can get some sort of value out of it, even if you crafted this whole period and didn't finish the quest line, which I was able to solo the last quest with the bug.
Unfortunate. I tried it about 32 times and couldn't get it to work.
With the bug in my advantage, I learned a certain way to do it, but that's irrelevant now. But I would do it in the past. I mean, it's $20, but I mean, I feel your grief. Yes, it's a little, we have to put up with this for.
It would be a quality of life experience for me, because it refuses to allow me to go in there and be frustrated. Instead, I sit and wait, and I'm really happy when everybody else has had to deal with all the crap and everything else, and I get a complete game when I gain my access.
That was JD and Neptune are pointing out you did get the 12 times XP with pre-ordering, so
which you couldn't turn off. And I've got 16 advanced classes maxed and good to go.
Indeed.
So.
All right. They also deployed 3.0.0b. That was last night, Wednesday morning US time, and only fixed one thing. All PvP mods sold on vendors are now bind on pickup. This includes Warzone and Rank Warzone modifications. Implication being they would bind on equip. Who knew? I didn't notice, but there you go. That was unfortunate, presumably. Anyway. In GSF, there's all kinds of stuff wrong. It kind of broke in a big way. There was a post on the forums explaining. So what went wrong? There was a code bug in 3.0 that broke some of the abilities, such as engine suppression, the EMP missiles, and it's not good. Just not activating at all because the character didn't have the upgrade or something. So sort of a side effect of the discipline in implementation, and looks like no one really tested GSF properly with it. The fix will be in game update 3.0.1, which they haven't told us when, but should be 3 weeks after 3.0.0. So in theory, another couple of weeks, but they haven't confirmed that. Talked about cadence at all for a while, actually. So who knows? Okay. And this will not fix things that broke in, all the other things wrong with GSF over the last 7 months. So they're just going to undo what broke with 3.0, but everything else will pretty much remain the same. Now, our guildmate Ferris Terran asked Tate Watson, when will the rest of Galactic Strongholds be fixed? And Tate said those fixes are coming in 3.0.1 as well, and that does include the pets, mounts, and vehicles not showing up in the decoration frame, which is a big one.
Yeah.
So that will be fixed, apparently.
A lot of people have been asking about that. Okay.
Yep. There was a post about silver mobs. Apparently, they're a lot more deadly. In fact, more far more deadly than golds at the moment. Now, we sort of
Huh.
noticed this when we were doing Manan yesterday. The golds, the damage from them was actually quite manageable, but those silvers could more or less one-shot characters, which was kind of weird. So, I read through the thread. There was a lot of L2P noob stuff, which may or may not be true. Maybe there's stuff you have to interrupt, but it did seem the silvers were hitting harder. So they're investigating. Maybe there is nothing wrong. Either way, it's out there. There's a post from Tate about the new customer service forum and the options that you have for reporting issues. I'll link to it. The quick summary is in-game tickets work. You can /bug if you actually find a bug. And there is phone support from a bunch of countries that don't include Australia.
For non-subs, which one of these actually works?
Phone support does, I believe. They cannot put in-game tickets, and I don't know about /bug. I would guess not for /bug as well.
Okay.
They also mentioned Answers HQ, which is Electronic Arts, some sort of bug database that's more or less for just non-SWOTOR EA Origin stuff, so I wouldn't even go there for anything SWOTOR related. Next, third anniversary of the game is coming up. A couple of weeks. Game will be 3 years old, and there was a post for what they're going to do about it. Help us celebrate 3 years of Star Wars: The Old Republic for a limited time. Move into Coruscant and German cast strongholds for only 3 credits, rather than 5,000 credits. Yeah, great. Plus, get some free decoration rewards. And starting December 2nd, which is basically in the past, you can get your very own Coruscant and German cast stronghold. No, sorry. On December 16th, which is next Tuesday, you'll get free decoration rewards including spectacular fireworks displays, decorative anniversary paintings, a special holographic projector of the entire galaxy, and more. These will be available until Monday, January 12th, 2015. So these are limited time, but you basically got a month to actually pick them up.
I'll grab
Now,
them. Okay.
Is it?
we had an email.
Do you just need to log in and get them out of your mail, or is it something where we'll have to get it off of a vendor?
The implication is it's from a vendor, but it could be mailed.
Okay.
Given they're saying that they're taking it away, and actually we did get an email from a guy named Emil, and he said you could actually get a sense of what is coming by looking in the preview windows for decos right now, and you'll see that the source for the 2 that he points out, which is the 3rd anniversary Galactic Memorial and the fireworks launcher, is the vendor for the 3rd anniversary, implying that there is indeed a vendor.
Okay.
So you got a month until 12 Jan, starting next Tuesday, to actually pick these things up. How are we doing for time? Yep. I'm going to save the canon thing for next week.
Okay.
All right, now in community news, Chill, do you want to do the shout out to the chat room with the force feedback?
Sure.
In community news, just wanted to thank our good friend Spencer, who has been on the show, for his donation, and for Scott Thomas and Grim for their recurring donations. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And this is a tweet from Force Chuckle. Utini Rage has a new ride, the Star Crawler. So yes, we do now have a guild capital ship on our Empire side guild, Utini Rage.
Ah, nice.
And this is thanks to the kind donation of one Bill, who kind of ponied up half the cash, 25 million for us. So thank you, Bill. And as per the Viz Fidelis, which is our Utini Knights flagship, he got the naming rights and he called it the Star Crawler, which is the most appropriate. So it's awesome. And from what people have been saying, they do kind of prefer the Empire flagship to the Republic one, but I guess it's just a matter of taste, really.
It's a nice screenshot. Is that from our game? From like one of our guildies?
It is indeed. That is from Force Chuckle.
Cool.
All right. Now, we'll just mention that, speaking of Utini Rage, some of our APAC players, as Asia Pacific players, sort of moved over from the Templars and are active and raid. They're calling themselves the Random Riders these days. A lot of former Utini Templars in there. They play around 9:30 p.m. or before Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Mondays and Thursdays. That's when they raid, but they're usually around that time slot on other days as well. So if you're in the Asia Pacific time zone and on the Empire side, and you want to find a bunch of people to play with, that would be a good place. Join us, Utini Rage, and they are looking for another DPS for the Random Riders. If you're interested, get in touch. I'll include a link to their post so you can do that.
Okay.
And finally, Kuze will tell us a little bit more about how to get the new Datacrons on Rishi.
Yeah, Google Hangouts is breaking up a little bit here, but we'll go with it. So I put a post out to OotiniCast last week on a quick summary of the Datacrons and how that it is not a platforming challenge this time around. It's actually a quest chain. And it's not unsimilar to some of the other quest chains or items and things that we had to do previously for certain Datacrons in the game. I.e., there's certain Datacrons, like on Quest, you might need 2 people to enter the room. There's no platforming involved whatsoever. So this is not a new thing for BioWare or SWTOR.
Right.
It's just a new play. One thing about it, it's a new play as in that all 4 Datacrons are in one place, which is rare. I would have preferred that maybe some of them were through this quest chain, or they would have made the quest chain a little bit easier and would have just had one there and then placed the other Datacrons throughout Rishi. Because, as I mentioned before, during my exploring and stuff like that, I actually found a lot of places that were a pretty neat place to put Datacrons. Some were on top of Rishi, which I have some screenshots of, which I can probably share next week. There were some waterfalls that were caves on the second tier of the waterfall behind. There was a little cave, which would have been a nice place to put a Datacron and things. So I don't know if they had planned that, and maybe they just threw them all into one place. But either way, the quest chain is a nice touch. The only issue is that mainly you have to find rare spawns of a certain. They're called Groffets, and there's 3 of them. There's one on Horizon Island, and there's 2 that are on Skyridge Island. And they spawn in specific locations. And if you go to Dolphy.com, she has a full layout with some pictures and everything. It's pretty easy to follow.
Okay.
So along the same lines as the tip of the week that I had.
I think it's Delphi.net, though.
Yeah, Dolphy.net. Whatever, it's Dolphy. We know who it is. Yes, Dolphy. But along the same lines of logging into certain locations, maybe for resources or treasure chests, you can probably place one of your characters at a certain location for where these rare spawns pop up. So when you log in, you might have a chance of grabbing one of these rare spawns and killing it. Now, the rare spawns are champions. The difficulty on them, if you fight another champion of the equivalent level on the same area, you might have to use heroic moment, might not, depending on what kind of gear that you have. So just be prepared. And the side thing from that is they drop gray items. There's 3 gray items that they drop, and it would be very easy, and they're called data packets. So when you kill a rare spawn, and it's going to be named rare because there's a few champion Groffets out there that are just generic names. So make sure that it has a rare name.
Okay.
And check your inventory. If you go to a vendor and you hit sell all junk, until they might fix this and put it in mission tab, hopefully, you'll wind up selling the data packet that you have gotten off.
Right.
Right. So, and there's 3 of those. After you get those 3 data packets, you're going to wind up going back to Slaver Island, and there's a crystal skull, if you want to call it, or a cryogenic or something like that. It's a skull that you'll grab, and it'll wind up giving you a buff. Then it'll take you to Raiders Cove, and once you go into Raiders Cove, there's going to be some pheromones that you have to grab. So, and then you go back to this other place that's on the Skyridge. Actually, we can break here. Yeah, it's on the Skyridge Island. On the Skyridge Island, there's going to be a rock formation that you click on, and it's gonna scan your character. If your character has the proper buffs, it'll allow you and not put a debuff on you, which will pretty much kill you, not necessarily instantly, but it'll put a dot on you and it'll kill you, and you won't be able to receive the Datacrons and treasure that's at the end. But if you do have the proper buffs after going through the quest chain properly, it'll shoot a blue beam down to another rock formation off to the side of the coast. You'll run down, follow the beam to that location. There's going to be another rock formation there. You click on that rock formation, and then these friendly tentacles will pop up, and they'll smack the rock a few times, and it'll bust open, and then all your Datacrons will come out. So it would be one for each primary stat.
You just click them all?
And you click them all. Now, I had a rare chance to actually, before I even had a chance to do this, was I saw the blue beam glowing, so I decided to follow it down, and I wound up grabbing all the Datacrons without going through the quest chain. Now, what the problem is here is I didn't check my stats beforehand. All I did was look in the chat box, and it said you have gained this codex, all 4 codex, but it didn't say what the percentage to your stats were. And to be honest, I don't really have a real comfortable feeling that I even gained some extra stats. I'm sure that I did, but there was no indication for me there grabbing it from somebody else saying that I actually received those stats. So it might be bugged, but if you see the blue beam, you might as well run over there and try to grab it anyways.
Okay. Kind of like that one in Bugtown, where if someone else opens the box, you can go and grab it too, even
Correct.
though they paid the 5,000 credits for the key.
Yes.
I guess there's no real way they can make it per person, as in you have to be on the chain, because if people's doing it as a group, would that work? As in, how would it work out that you're all together, basically?
Well, even
the same
from
group,
Dolphy's guide, that you can summon people to the location to pick up the Datacrons.
So once it's open.
Once it's open, it should be open, and I'm sure I have the stats, but again, I don't have a comfortable feeling that, yes, I definitely have the stats. So, I wanted that 100%. You got plus 10 to aim, cunning, strength, and willpower. And I heard you guys talking about it on the show last week, and Turg had mentioned about what is the, is there a real purpose to having Datacrons anymore? But I have to remind people that not just your primary stat gives you a bonus, but also somewhat your secondary stat. If you're a force wielder or force, strength might be your primary, but willpower will also give you a percentage to your crit. Yes. You might be tech, so your primary aim or cunning might give you, your stat bonuses, but your secondary will also help you out with crit as well. Not to mention present helps you out with your health, and we also have endurance boosts through companion or through buffs and through stims and everything else. So that percentage will add up. It's a little bit, but it could mean the difference in some fights. And then again, if you're soloing, presence will help out as well. So I think it's worth it to grab the Datacrons.
But just to be clear, cunning and aim will do nothing for force users, and strength and willpower likewise will do nothing for tech users. Just to be completely clear.
Just grab it for the codex.
And Sorks and sages still don't get a benefit for strength, right?
Crit. They will get a crit bonus.
They do get crit?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, because I thought that the strength was worded that it was only for crit for physical effects, and that they don't actually, Sorks and sages don't do physical damage.
I think if you mouse over your stats and your character page, it just straight out says strength, and it tells you how much bonus to crit that you received, whether it's physical or not. I didn't see that difference in there. It may be somewhere else.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Kusei.
All right. Well, that'll bring us to the Force Feedback, where I read out your tweets and emails. And let's do a quick shout-out to the chat room. Ganglotron is here, Giant Gina is here, Rye Raider, Beware 2, Casmus, Elion D, Fluxy Poxy, Gaddick Teague from the Unnamed Soldier Podcast is here, Nixus is here, Nepthan, Reldex, Rikiri, and Sonata. Thanks for coming, everyone. And if anyone in the chat room has any questions to ask, please do so, and we'll be gathering them now to ask once we're done with the feedback. And we'll start off with Kranatoko. I did mention it earlier. And he did write in the latest Hypercrate video for Pilgrim's Shadow PAX is live, and he says thanks to the OotiniCast for being in the intro. And there is the link, and it's a lot of fun. I think everyone knows by now I'm a big fan of his great opening videos.
Aren't we all? Yep.
In any case,
It was a lot of fun to participate.
The intros are fun too, and then I love the actual watching of the uncrating as well. Descartes wrote in, regarding farming basic comms, heroics on Voss, or even starter planets drop them, correct?
Well, yes. Basic comms are the new planetary comms and everything else, so they drop everywhere. Literally everywhere. You'll be swimming in them.
I got one off of just a regular old mob the other day. So
indeed. So it's real easy to hit the cap. Oh well. So yeah, don't worry about getting basic comms. You will be drowning in them.
186 gear is going to be easier to get than 156 was at the 2.0 drop. That's true.
Ain't that the truth? Yep.
Yeah. How long before we get a saber-like hilt like the trailer one in SWTOR? I'm betting we'll get it in the 3.1 on the cartel market.
That is the one with the cross blade, which is 2 little mini lightsabers in addition to the main blade. Yeah, I'd say there's a fairly good chance of that. We'll see.
Right. I would imagine that would be an inspiration. Dirta of the Wook and Ascendant Guilds on the Shadowlands wrote, Shaymar asked about speeder decorations being unavailable. From my experience, speeders are only available to be placed by the character who actually owns the speeder, and I think pets may work the same way. They will show up when you filter by unlocked, but not when you filter by available, unless you are the character who unlocked the decoration.
Though in this particular case, I think it's pretty clear now that it was the existing GSH issue that is preventing anyone's speeders from showing up, etc. So while that's true, most likely the actual issue was the bug.
Okay.
Which will be fixed in 3.01 apparently.
Yeah, so a few weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jerry O'Keefe wrote, any word on if synthetic energy matrix is a bug for the Dark Project mat?
So it was, this is just one of the mats required to make a Dark Project, crafted Dark Project. Now apparently on the PTS for Galactic Strongholds, it was a synthetic energy matrix as it is now. When they launched Strongholds, it was changed to a self-perpetuating power cell, which you can actually get off the Jawa vendor. But now it has apparently reverted in 3.0 to a synthetic energy matrix again. So yes, most likely, as Jerry's suggesting, it is a bug, and he's going to put in a ticket about it. So yeah, that just sounds like something got reverted to an old PTS state that is just wrong.
Okay. All right. Ari wrote in, if I'm doing an operation, am I operating or am I rating?
So yeah, a bit of nomenclature here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What is the verb for what you are doing? Are you raiding? Are the ops raids?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
for me,
operating
to
is
avoid
awkward.
confusion for people that are new to the game and haven't played other MMOs, of which I'm meeting more and more recently as Star Wars becomes more popular, saying raids confuses people. So I've always just said, hey, we're grouping up for an ops, or we're doing an operation, or like I use the terminology that's presented to us in the game just to avoid that confusion.
That's fair for new players. For old school, of course, raiding is raiding. It's like missions versus quests. Like, even though they are most definitely missions in SWTOR, even the devs refer to them as quests and quest givers.
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, really? I haven't been hearing quests in a while. It's ironic because the community has fully embraced war zones and flashpoints, but for some reason has real mental block about incorporating operation. And I'm not sure why. Ops is shorter to type, too.
And because it's ops, I'm kind of surprised that people don't just call it opping as a sort of a nice little shorthand, but...
Opping?
Opping, yes.
I like that. Let's go in
I've called it
opping.
that a few times, but I don't know how much it's actually caught on yet.
Not very, I'm guessing.
Operating is very awkward. I mean,
That's wrong, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. That's no good. But opping, at least that's, that could be its own thing.
Well, I mean, I definitely see in like guild chat and stuff, people say, "Hey, is there an op tonight?"
Yep.
And that's much shorter and easier to pop into the chat, you know.
Yeah.
Jeff, aka Draknir, wrote, "It's been a few days since the release of Shadows of Revan, and I finally got around to playing the Prelude. I am one of those players who would prefer to play solo than with a group, and with the release of this new expansion, I thought it was great. Nothing preventing solo players from completing flashpoints as well." Is that right? Because I think he wrote it backwards.
Maybe you missed a full stop there. I thought it was great.
I thought it was great. Nothing allowed solo players to complete flashpoints as well. I don't understand that sentence at all. Nothing prevented solo players from completing flashpoints as well? That's what I'm
I
thinking.
thought it was great. How about that it allowed solo players to complete flashpoints as well?
I see. Okay. I thought it was great that it allowed solo players to complete flashpoints as well. But I ran into a problem on the completion of Part 3 of Forged Alliance. I completed the entire mission and exited the flashpoint successfully, but when I spoke to Lana again, she acted as if the mission was starting all over. Even my quest log kept saying complete Part 3, but I had already done the quest and it would not allow me to begin the new Shadows of Revan quest and storyline again. For some reason it will not allow me to bypass the Forged Alliance either to start Shadows of Revan. I even tried going back into the flashpoint to run the mission again, but it acted as if I had already completed it. Has anyone encountered this issue, and any suggestions on what I can do to proceed further?
Now, we did link to Eric Mosco's post last week with a set of things to try if this happens to you. It seems that something has screwed up. Sometimes the quest step at the end of that is just a little bit non-obvious, but it sounds like it wasn't something like that. He really is kind of stuck. However, if you can't get anywhere with this, you can still do Rishi. You can actually complete the Shadow of Revan storyline. You just need to go down to Rishi and then talk to the first quest giver that you see, who's actually a Rishi, and he will give you the option of starting Shadow of Revan without having completed the Prelude, and he will warn you will lose the rewards that you get from doing the Prelude, which is actually quite nice. They're bind to Legacy. I think it's the offhand for your companion, a 192, which is really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, you can always get that on other characters, and move it around given it's bind to Legacy. So you're not missing out everything, assuming that the other characters don't have this trouble. So yeah, if you want to keep going and they can't fix it any other way, there's always that. Or you could just do another character and hope that this gets sorted somehow.
I thought the Prelude gave you the main hand, and the completion of the Forge Alliance Ultimate Story gave you the offhand.
Yeah, you're
For
probably
your
right.
yes, for your companions, yeah.
For your
For your
companions.
companion. That's probably right. Yeah,
Mm.
I know you
And
get
those quests are both repeatable as well, so you can just stockpile them all up.
Yes. Yeah, that's nice.
All right.
Which one is repeatable? Sorry.
The ones for the companion, main hand, and offhand.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I've got 3 or 4 of them now.
I see.
Get one of every kind. All right. Nick wrote in, do you think .0 expansions will happen more than once a year now that Galactic Starfighter and Galactic Strongholds are in the game?
A really interesting question.
We
So
can mention
his
this,
point
yeah.
is that they're not going to add any new major systems, and thus they are able to dedicate their resource to building expansion stuff that is more cinematic, story-oriented. So, well, first question is, could they do like 4.0 without a level increase, or would it always have a level increase? If it didn't have a level increase, could they have a storyline that would take us through this similar content that we're doing now, but without actually getting XP? I mean, would that even make any sense? Would they do that?
Yeah, it would be fun. I mean, it'd be always great to have another storyline, but
I guess you could look at Oricon as an example, where there is an actual story that you go through, which opens up a bunch of dailies, and then leads you into the operation. It was a whole new planet, a
That
whole
was
new
the
story.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, but no level increase, of course.
Well, I
One
think
would
if it,
presume that's just an operation patch day, isn't it?
A 0.1 release or 0.2, 0.3 kind of thing.
Yeah, like
Right.
it's always been. I mean, hopefully before they ever come out with an expansion, they actually give us something for the rest of the game. GSF, Strongholds, PvP, all the other content that's missing in this one. But yeah, I think it doesn't. I think the story, especially the way they've written it with this expansion, is going to carry through operations as normal with point releases. But an expansion, perhaps if it's not going to be a level increase, but it's here is Operations Story, PvP, GSF, like a full-on expansion, then maybe. Just because it's a big content dump that way. I don't know, though. I have no idea.
I guess my guess is no. Now, as JD from the Unnamed Soil podcast mentioned in chat a while ago, he thinks it's going to be a 4.0 basically around the release of episode 7 at the end of 2015, which would kind of make a lot of sense.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so even though they probably could push out more another 0.0 release earlier, they probably won't. There'll be, as Red is saying, just other content for all aspects of the game between now and then. Probably another daily planet or two with the new operations, which we're going to have hopefully more than every 14 months or whatever. Hopefully. So yeah, that's more likely.
I would say that I'm fine with a earlier 0.0 expansion, or whether it be free or paid, that is not a level cap raise, as long as it's earlier. I think once we go past a year or so, we get to be too comfortable, and switching things up, kind of like they did with the discipline system, and adding new stuff and everything else, it's kind of a refresh for the game. So myself, maybe from playing MMOs in the past, I think I would rather have a level cap after a certain amount of time, maybe a year or so. But in between, to me, patches, and whether you name it 3.0, 4.0, it doesn't really matter. But after an extended period of time, I would like to see a level cap extension on a expansion. But in between, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the flip side is if he's thinking of expansions as story with operations, I don't think they'll be .0 expansions, but I would expect to see it more often than once a year.
Yeah, just don't label it. The label doesn't matter. It's the content that we get.
Yeah,
sure.
All right. Nathaniel Starr wrote in, free-form space combat that you can join in and participate in at any level. Space combat is a big part of Star Wars and was asked for by the players at launch big time, so why is it so unpopular? One thing that I think sucks is the fact that stopping under a satellite is one of the best strategies. Tuck yourself in and do nothing. Even if you aren't a bomber, this works very well. I use it myself and win matches for my team, but I will admit it's a crock of horse crap, not to mention boring. For one, it slows the game down from the frantic pace of the movies, and it makes it about trying to stop and shoot the guy who is not moving. Second, you shouldn't even be able to completely stop in space because of the lack of the atmosphere. Inertia should be constant. And yes, you could have reverse thrusters, but then that should start sending you in reverse. Any motion, such as firing a missile, would send a parked vehicle off in some other direction. I say keep space combat moving, make it frantic, and make it about dodging instead of hiding, as it's supposed to be a Twitch game after all. So shouldn't the devs counter lame strategies that chase people out of certain parts of the game? I know they've kind of given up on GSF, but I think it could be good and it would attract people to it. I know that people came back to try it when it was new, but then they found it lacking and left again.
I'm so glad that wasn't my experience on the Bastion, man. GSF is alive and vibrant, except for the fact that it doesn't work right now on the Bastion, but it sounds like his server is not fun.
And they're going to be fixing GSF in 3.0.1. Now, Kuze, you had some thoughts on his reverse?
Yeah, I hate to be the person to play devil's advocate, but where I do agree with him, maybe to add a more frantic game that he calls it, maybe that the scouts and strike fighters would have the inability to actually stop and spawn camp or whatever you want to call it, or
right,
and wait for targets to come by and only to target them. The assumption is based off of our current physics, not necessarily what Star Wars physics are. Watching the movies and everything else, they can do a lot more things that we can. Hell, they got a light that comes out of a hilt that stops at a designated point. So don't tell me that in space you can't stop, on a dime, because
And
evidently
remember,
Star Wars.
they have inertial dampers and all of that stuff. So
Exactly.
whatever.
But yes, I do agree. It would make it a little bit more fun for people to play. The other thing is, you would be amazed, even because in engineering that I've worked in before, how much thought it goes into even launching a rocket off of a helicopter, which is in our atmosphere with no necessarily inertia to an extreme that you have to worry about. How much work goes just into that? So I could just imagine that in the Star Wars universe, in quotes, how much work went into stopping a scout on a certain point to shoot another, to shoot an enemy flying by.
So you're saying it's plausible the way it is now, but I guess the question is it fun to allow this kind of thing?
That's where I'm going with it. Yeah.
Yeah, to be sort of a devil's advocate to your devil's advocate, Star Wars space in the movies, the space fighter combat is basically based on World War II movies. So I mean, it is based on atmospheric type, constant motion, swooping and banking, which is basically not what happens in space. It's based on airplane combat. So I mean, if they made it so that everyone had to keep moving, I would be perfectly fine with that, because that would actually, in many ways, be more close to the movies, even if it's not space realistic.
I just really want to see a freaking strike fighter launch a missile and kill himself because he backs into a satellite. Just boom! I want to see that explosion.
Right. Well, that is one of the reasons that strategy works so well, is because the physics, of the engine are a little limited in that if they hit you, that's great. If the missile hits, the space thing that's right next to you that you've stopped next to, you don't get any splash damage from it. Yeah. And nor are you pushed away by the explosion or anything like that.
But the ultimate question is it going to bring more people to GSF because they've fixed some of the physics in the game to where it's a more frantic game and people are flying around and on, you feel like you're flying on the edge of your seat and everything's blowing up in front of you? I doubt it. I mean, I hardly play GSF now as it is, and that's not going to bring me to GSF. I think all the people who wanted to play it in the beginning were really into the on-rails game, which I kind of still like myself, and they wanted a little something more. So a small percentage of the community, again, which is always probably the same percent that wants hoods to toggle up and down, complained that they wanted to have a open-world GSF PvP-based thing.
What would bring me back would be a PvE GSF.
I agree with that.
You do operations or raids or whatever in against some AI-driven opponents or something. I would play GSF again, but I'm kind of over the whole PvP aspect of it, personally.
Okay. Let's go on to Mytherius, who wrote, in PvP, I'm loving Operative 3.0 so far. But how do you solo 1v1 versus a Sage or Sork? The Sage was balanced and I was level 30 and he was 56. But even still, I couldn't hardly hurt him.
Most likely, the Sage was in full PvP gear, probably has just the usual set, and so had full expertise. At level 30 with Bolster, you would probably been not too bad, but yeah. And the Sage probably was really, really good. That probably didn't hurt either. And a balanced Sage with all of the dotsers, which can no longer be cleansed. How do you 1v1 them? That's a really good question.
Although he is an operative, he can purge it.
Yeah.
Once.
But, yeah.
Yeah, once, exactly.
Later, they're all back.
So how do you solo a 1v1 Sage? You need them in the open world when you're the same level.
Yeah, I've noticed in PvP on my 60 Sentinel that the dots hurt. The dots hurt really bad, especially since I'm kind of like this level 30, where I haven't had much time to get the gear, so I don't have high expertise. So, yeah, those dots are hitting for, a couple thousand per tick. It really hurts.
So no real good solution? How do you take one down?
In that situation, just keep leveling up, and because part of the problem is that you just don't have all the tools that you'll get later on. Okay. So that you'll have more abilities that will actually help with this sort of thing. Yeah.
I think what we'll do is put the question to Snave and see what he thinks.
Yeah.
Given that he is something of an operative guru, he's kind of a big deal.
Right. And Teo, you have another thing to cover today.
Yeah, we had some emails from Trev. Now, what happened to him, just to boil it down, is that he was passing a number of items between his characters in the in-game mail system. And these included cartel market items that he had purchased or acquired, however. And because he had been off doing other things and hadn't logged in, he did eventually log in to discover that he believes that quite a few of these items that he had been moving around had disappeared because your mail will expire. At least player-to-player mail will actually expire. If you look at it in your inbox, sometimes it goes yellow, then it will go red, and then it will just disappear. It will return to sender, so it will go back to whoever sent it in the first place, but then it will just sit there until it goes away. And it cannot be recovered. Now, he talked to customer service a couple of times and basically put it to him that he was a subscriber, even though he wasn't regularly playing, etc. And couldn't they do something? Because there is no way of getting it out of the mail system. It's just gone. They're not logging that stuff. So it really was gone, unrecoverable. So, and they told him the system was working as intended and they couldn't really do anything. So SWTOR may have lost a player there. And yeah, and I guess his point was, in terms of good customer service, should Bioware customer service have gone over its way to give him a little something just in compensation for what was clearly a player mistake, a user error, so to speak, or misunderstanding.
I think if they had a general fix for this necessarily, or a general subscriber deal, not necessarily deal, or something that they can do to say, hey, we can't give you this back, but we can do this. But it would probably get, I mean, they have trends. I'm sure that customer service says, hey, we're getting a lot of people that are calling in just to game the system saying, I'm losing stuff in mail. I'm sure that it doesn't happen that often. So what would it really hurt Bioware to say, we're sorry you lost your stuff, you probably should have logged in. And not to mention, a lot of other MMOs do the same very thing, where they'll dump mail after a certain period of time.
Yeah, I think all of them.
We can't do this, but
they have to.
Here's a cartel pack, or something stupid. I mean, it's not sufficient, but it's something.
Right.
A token, basically, or a gesture. Yeah.
Cartel compensation.
Cartel coin compensation.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So yeah, that would make sense. I mean, it'd be one of those things that they could just train their customer service support staff to keep an ear out, and if it seems like they're sincere and not just gaming the system, and they're generally distraught, that they can actually toss them a bone.
Should do something.
Cartel packs or whatever it turns out being.
Because what does it cost Bioware to pass you a code for a certain mount or a certain pet or something like that? Nothing, because they've already created it.
Right. It's still funny money.
And retaining.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. And it's not like you're going to be buying a whole lot of them if you leave the game because you're upset. So, you know what I mean? In other words, if your argument is that, well, if you give them cartel packs, then they won't be buying those cartel packs, well, if you don't give them those cartel packs and they leave the game, they're not going to be buying cartel packs, period.
Right.
So yeah. All right.
We've got time for one more question.
Alrighty. And this question's from Dakar. Had a question for Teo. What's the right way to make hot tea in Australia? I was raised with the hot water and tea bag method, but I've recently embraced a more Asian approach with various loose leaf teas and a mesh screen that rests in the teapot. How do you do it?
So yeah, I probably make far more of a big deal out of this than it actually is. I use tea bags exclusively. I've tried loose leaf tea, but I just don't like it. And the only trick to it is you want the water to be straight off the boil when it hits the tea bag, because that's the way to really bring out the flavour. If you sort of wait a few seconds or whatever, it's just not the same. So that's how I make tea. And in the US, this is when they bring you the thing of hot water and a tea bag. It's way too late. The water is lukewarm, and it's not the same. So that's why you want to make it straight off the boil.
So you want really hot water and a fresh tea bag. That's where we're going with it.
Absolutely. Straight out of the kettle, boiling. Yes.
Boiling. Fresh tea bag to the face. Got it.
Okay. Yep, that's it. And that's that. Questions from the chat?
Red, did you find some questions from the chat room?
Sorry, I was geeking out on graphs.
Next week.
Just one from Casmus this week. He wanted to ask you, Tio, do the materials for the purple stems, do those take the purple mats from Diplomacy?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed they do.
It's standard across the board. Any blue item uses the blue mats. Any purple item will require both the blue and the purple mats. So yes.
Yeah, I actually like this. Since they removed the reusable feature, it makes those purple mats more consistently valuable now.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Even though it's still 8 hours, so you don't need to replace it as often, it's still...
Right. And it seems like, at least in the case of Biochem, that a lot of the purple recipes are exactly the blue recipes, just with the one or sometimes more purple items added. In other words, it'll take the same amounts. It won't expand them like to crazy, crazy amounts of blues and greens and whatever. It keeps those the same, but then you do need the purples.
It seems the greens are 2, 2, 2, and then the blues are 4, 4, 4, 4 with the blue mats, and then the purples are the same, as you said, with a couple of the purple. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And and the stims and med packs and so forth. I mean, yeah, they're selling, but they're not exactly going for super high. I think it's just because it's so easy to get the recipe and stuff and to make them.
The mats are raining from the sky, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm going for the implants as far as trying to make money on Biochem, and that'll stop working after a while too. And then I'll just focus on just making lots and lots of med packs for and stims for the raid. Or the op.
Whatever. What did you say? When we opper?
Or when we go opping, yes.
Opping.
And opping we will go. All right. So next week we're planning on doing the Select Digest regarding
the
PvP
analysis
leaderboards.
of the stats for ranked PvP Season 3. This was done by Marinen in conjunction with UC from the Red Eclipse server. So they've taken all of the stats that you can see that we use on our leaderboards page, OotiniCast.com/leaderboards, but they've done a really deep analysis from an actual statistician. So some really interesting stuff there. We'll go through it in detail next week, which would be quite a light news week, we're thinking.
Cool. Do you know? Did they run their own gathering of the data off the boards themselves, or did they use yours, or?
Oh, they would have pulled it themselves. It's easy to do once you know how.
Okay.
Anyone can do it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. All right. Then if that was the last question, correct, Red? Just want to make sure one more time. All right, awesome. Then that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our
Utini Regida
Guild on the Empire side, do a /c join Utini to join the Utini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. And Kuze is on Twitter at Kuze_ROH and YouTube at Kuze_ROH. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using at OotiniCast. You can find contact details for all of us on our website, OotiniCast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record every show the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. Thank you to the chat room, and thanks Kuze and Red.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
All right, keep recording. Don't stop it, gentlemen. Thank you, chat room. Geez, Kuze, that was somewhat unexpected. I knew you were going with the samurai theme, but that was...
Yeah.
All right. Now, Red is doing his interview. He's doing a roundtable with a couple of awesome theory crafters, and that will be published either next week, more likely the following week, probably when we're going to have some short shows around Christmas and New Year's, but we are planning to just keep the shows rolling, so even if they are really short. So anyway, we will see you next week. Happy leveling and opping.
Bye.